is meant to be a mapping exercise in terms of how to map using some of the historical documents we have learned in the Korean War time. And we have a former general, Yoon Hee-ryung, who actually have a tremendous of knowledge in terms of mapping during the Korean War's time in the office. And the former general Lee Sang-cheol, who used to be the head of the War Memorial Museum in Yongsan, and the Dr. Lee Sung-chun, who used to run the military archive in Korea. And please note that this you are broadcasted live in Zoom, and Korean students who are actually interested in the history will be looking at you secretively behind their Zoom cameras. And special thanks to Czech Embassy as well as Lee Hye-ryung, who actually organized and made today possible. Lee Hye-ryung is one of the most prominent figure when it comes to independency movement in Korea. He used to give 600억, what's 600억 in English? 60 million won back then in Korea, but then he actually used that to help Korea's liberation. Instead, he didn't actually have much for himself. So to commemorate Lee Hye-ryung's work, so we have made the museum there, and he's responsible for taking control of that museum. And he's also a poet. Everybody, that's an introduction, brief introduction of him. So he's the one who's responsible for inviting you and everything. So during the independence battle in the Manchuria, back then in the Korean history, we won the battle. And one of the reasons that we actually won is because we actually got supplied from the Czech supplied materials, military materials to Korean liberation armies. So in order to revive the archival history, so he went to Czech about a decade ago to meet him in person. So tomorrow is the commemoration day, anniversary of Cheongsan-ri battle, which is the battle the Korean Liberation Army won in Manchuria. So this is the first time we are doing a conference, an international symposium conference, first time since we actually got the weapons from Czech Republic 105 years ago. And there is a commemoration, 동판이 뭐죠? Commemoration, bronze memorial, and basically to commemorate South Korea's democracy movement, and he also actually nominated that to Korea University as well. All of that was possible because of the Professor Cho Kwang. Okay, shall we begin? I will briefly introduce Michael Rack before we begin. So good afternoon, everyone. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to today's special lecture by Professor Michael Rack. Michael Rack is one of the most insightful and prominent scholar when it comes to the field of European history. So as today, we're extremely lucky to have him sharing his research on Czech and how Czech encountered Koreans in the fascinating period between 1918 to 1920. And I'm sure this will offer a rare window of how Korea was first perceived by Europe in the early 20th century. So by bridging the histories of Central Europe and Northeast Asia, Dr. Rack's work expands the global context of North Korean studies, something that resonates deeply with our mission here in the North Korea Archive. In the North Korea Archive Center, under the leadership of Professor Min Kyung-hyun, who is also a prominent historian in Korea University, we are dedicated to uncovering and preserving North Korea's historical, cultural, and political and social realities through the systematic collection and analysis of primary sources. So our mission here in North Korea Archive is to understand North Korea truly as it is, not by any evidence, not by an evidence, grounded by an evidence, not by perceptions. So I'm certain that Professor Rack's special lecture today will make an enormous contribution in this field. So enough of me talking. Please join with me welcoming Professor Rack.
Good day, everyone. First, I must say thank you. It's a big honor to us that we can be in your university. It's not so often that our organization can speak in such places like this. So it is really a big inspiration for us. I prepare a short presentation about long legionnaire history. And because I know that you are North Archive Center, I prepare very basic information about Czechoslovak military connection to North Korea. This is on the end of the presentation. So you can next. When I read something about Korean history, of course, because Korean history is not well known in Czech Republic because it's really far. I think that there is really a strong similarities in history of both nations. Our kingdom is long history. It started in 19th century. We have big kings. Maybe you know Hussit's wars in 15th century when Czech lands made history in all Europe. We have only one elected king, George of Poděbrady, and then in 16th century, in 1926, we elected German House of Habsburg to our kings. Czech noblemen think that Habsburgs are weak rulers and they will rule the kingdom and not the Habsburgs. But the Habsburgs very quickly take the power in kingdom and start something like we know black time history. This was a German Catholic house, and the Czech population were the Protestants. It was from Hussite wars. So the Habsburgs prepared big change in Czech society. There was using of German in normal using in the state, so Czech language was in minor using, and when those 30-year wars, which started in Prague too, the recatholicization of Czech language was stronger and stronger. So in 19th century, there was the time of big Czech rebirth. There was a new Czech language used in books. There was new Czech organization like Sokol was organization about the sport and prepared the people for the independence fight. Can we next? So, on the end of 19th century, in Europe, we have something like Belle Epoque. It is time when everything looks like supreme. There was big prosperity, there was big technological development, and everything looks like there is a nice future in all nations. But like in Austro-Hungary, were big national problems. Austro-Hungary was state compared with many nations. The Czech Republic, known Czech Republic, and the red places are places where the Germans live. So in 1867, there was Austro-Hungarian agreement, and from Austrian Empire, new state Austro-Hungarian was. The Czechs, of course, want something like this. They want Austro-Hungarian Czech land, but the German population was so strong, they have so strong connection to Habsburg that this never happened. And this is the reason why the Czech people were anti-Germans, anti-Habsburg. So when the First World War started, can we next, please? The Czechs and Slovaks men who lived abroad, they chosen to make the volunteers military units who fought with the Allied side against the Austro-Hungarian. Of course, they should go back to Austro-Hungarian and go in Austrian army, but they freely chose to stay in Russia, in France, in Serbia, and go in this army and start fight for independence. In this first opinion, they didn't think that on the end of the war should be independent. They hoped that when the Austria-Hungarian Czech land was, it was a good decision. So the biggest volunteer unit is in Russian. In the Russian, because of course it was Slavic nation, there in 19th century were big connection to Russian, because everyone in Czech land think that Russians like Slovan are very comrades to us, but when they come in Russian, they discover that it is not so true. The Germans nobility, Russian nobility in this time was very like the Germans nobility. So some little Slavic nation in Middle Europe was no interest for them. But the Czech politician in Russia have some connection to Tsar, and they be able to obtain the first Czechoslovak unit after 100 years. So the Czech družina, Česká družina, Czech fellowship was established in Kiev in August 1914. And this time it was very good for the Russians, because in this time the Russian army advanced to Austro-Hungarian borders, and they expect that use the Czech volunteers something like propagandists in Czech lands to say to Czech and Slovak people why the Russians come and what they do in the liberated country. But when the Czech soldiers was prepared in October 1914, the situation on battlefields changed. The Russian army started retreat, and now the Czech soldiers must be used in the battle. But it looks like a very good decision, because these volunteers were very good educated men. It was very often some professors from universities, but what was the people who go in the Russia before the start war, like people from schools, bank crops, Czech big factories. All of them have good language knowledge. They speak Russian, they speak German, Hungarian, Czech. So they were used very useful for Russian army, like the scouts. So they were used to scouting the German position, to take the prisoners, taking the information from enemy. So the Russian commanders were very happy that they have so useful soldiers. And there was, on the end of 1914, the permission to take the soldiers from between the prisoner of wars. Of course, there was thousands of prisoner of wars of Austrian army, and there was a lot of Czechs. So the members of Česká družina can go to the prisoners, and they said first time they the prisoners often first time known that something like Czech unit in Russian exists. So over 300 of them directly in battlefield choose to go in the Czech Družina. So in 1915 the units can go bigger and bigger, but in May, in spring 1915, the Russian army must retreat. There was a lot of big battles, and the battles often were from the Russian side used according to information which the Czech scouts obtained. So it was really important to Russian army. In 1916, this little unit was expanded first to regiment and then to Czechoslovak Rifle Brigade, about two companies. And in 1917, there was big change in Russia, of course. The Tsars was in end, and democratic politicians take the rule. But of course, it is Russia. There was a lot of problems. The main military one was that there was order that the normal soldiers cannot use the orders by the officers. So there was really big chaos between the Russian soldiers. But of course not in Czechoslovak unit, because they have voluntarity and they don't know the officers' orders to make the things. In summer 1917, there was a big offensive in Eastern Front, but the Russian soldiers said, no, we did not fight. But Czechoslovak soldiers, yes, it was first time after 40 years, 100 years, when the Czechoslovak unit together go in the battle. The Battle of Zborov in 2nd July 1917 is the most famous and most important battle in the independent movement, because in this battle the 3,500 Czechoslovak soldiers break through the three lines of Austro-Hungarian trenches, and like only one in all Russian offensive make the goal of they had. So they captured the hill Mogila. It was really heavy defended. They captured some thousand German, Austrian soldiers. Between them was a lot of Czech and Slovaks, and a lot of them after the battle go in the legions. And for the political reason, it was important because it was first time in history when the Russian government, but the other allied government too, really noticed that Czechs and Slovaks think that they independence movement really, that they want the independence. And from this battle, the Russians, France, and United Kingdom really works together to Czechoslovak can be free after the war. But of course, the situation in Russia were more and more complicated. There is a Bolshevik revolution, and of course, after this, the main goal, the main enemy was the Germans. And Bolsheviks didn't want to continue fight with the Germans. So there was the plan to all Czechoslovak soldiers move to France, to Western Front, where they can continue fight with the Germans. So in the spring 1918, there was start to transfer Czechoslovak units via Trans-Siberian Railway to Vladivostok, and then to the France. Next, please. But what the Czechoslovak didn't know was that after the Brest-Litovsk agreement between Bolsheviks and Germans, the Bolsheviks think that they disarmed Czechoslovak and they didn't go in France. Of course, it's because the Germans didn't want the big army go to West Front to help the French. But the Bolsheviks have not so strong Red Army in Siberia to can disarm the Czechoslovak soldiers. So there was some little minor incidents that say that there is enough train, there is enough coal to train, there are some other problems that they cannot continue to the Vladivostok. On the other side, they freed the prisoner of the war. So in the station on Trans-Siberian Legions, the Czechoslovak soldiers meet the Germans and Austrian soldiers, and there, of course, were a lot of conflicts because the Germans and mainly the Austrians said that you are the traitor and we should do that. The big incident took place in Chelyabinsk. And this incident the Bolsheviks used like the incidents when they decision that they took the arms from Czechoslovaks by the army. But the Czechoslovak soldiers were in the telegraph station and they read the telegrams which Bolsheviks sent between them. So they were prepared, and on the end of May, the war between the Czechoslovak legions and Bolsheviks started. The Bolsheviks, of course, think that they have more men, they have more weapons and everything. They think that there will be no problem to defeat in small military units, except that one part was in Volha region and second part was in Vladivostok region. But the Czechoslovak soldiers was very, very clever, very strong, very brave. And on the end of August 1918, they took all Trans-Siberian railway from the Volha to Vladivostok. They win a lot of battles. They win all of the battles which they have with Bolsheviks. It was very interesting that the losses of Czechoslovak soldiers in these battles were minimal. For example, in battle of Lipiagi, there was in one-day battle when the Bolsheviks have some 2 times stronger army. They lost only around 30 men, and the Bolsheviks around 1,500. Really, the battle was very, very bloody, mainly from the Bolshevik side. Big problem for this was that the Allied side, mainly the French and United Kingdom, said that this battlefield was anti-German battlefield because between the Bolshevik soldiers were a lot of Germans and Austrian soldiers. But when the First World War ended, and of course they said we sent you a lot of our soldiers and munition and weapons, etc., etc. But when the wars ended, the decision was changed, and only few soldiers come in Siberia. Of course, there was a lot of Japanese. They have own interest here. There's over 70,000 Japanese soldiers. But for example, Italian army sent 1,000. France sent some 5,000 colonial troops, and so. So the Czechoslovak army was only one from the Europe with big personality will continue in the Siberia. And in October 1918, the Czechoslovakia state was formed. So no, the soldiers didn't know why they continue fight in Siberia. The war was ended, the Czechoslovak exists, but they are still in Siberia. So of course the morale was low. So in the January 1919, the Czechoslovak army was from the front take to the railway station between around the town Irkutsk and Nizhny Udinsk, and they, thank you very much, and they guarded the Trans-Siberian Railway against the Red partisans and robbery bands. And of course, it was clearly in these years that the more Allied army didn't come in Russia. So they started talk with Bolsheviks that they come home. Of course, the Bolsheviks didn't want this. There was big problem that the Czech army was only one which was not defeated. So they prepared in January 1920 the agreement that the Czechoslovak can go home but must give everything what they have to the Bolsheviks, weapons, equipment, trains, and of course we didn't know if the soldiers have no money what the Bolsheviks made. So there was a last big battle in February 1920. The Czechoslovak soldiers won again. So the Bolsheviks will make a decision. There was some peace between the armies, and the Czechoslovaks made the evacuation for the Vladivostok and then continue to the Europe. The way to home is some big part of legendary history because it is around the world. So the first ship transport was in January 1919, was the invalids, the wounded soldiers and older soldiers go from Vladivostok to Europe. First ship transport was on the ships which go to the Vladivostok with Allied soldier and were empty to go to Europe. So Czechoslovak politician in Russia make the agreement that they take some older legionnaires to home. In December 1919, the first combat unit, the first rifle regiment, what was the Česká družina Acedmen, go in the Czechoslovakia. There was together 36 transport in mainly American ships, and they go to home really around the world. Some transport goes through United States or Canada, some through the Panama Canal, but most of them go around India and around Red Sea to the Port Said and Tendud Terst. In this transport was nearly 70,000 men, and for the soldier it was a really big experience because they see the places which they know maximally from some romance or travel guides. And also they are in Djibouti, in Singapore, Ceylon, in Colombo, and places like this. So that's very important part of legionary history. And next. And of course the Czechoslovak soldiers meet the Koreans in Vladivostok or in the Far East. We must say that the Koreans was not known nationality for them before they come in the Vladivostok. And what is important, when they go through the Siberia, they meet lot of nations about they never heard before. So we think that they will little problem to recognize which nationality they talk in a specific moment. So we have some reports about contacts between Czechoslovak and Koreans. For example, there is a newspaper of Czechoslovak army. It's called Československý deník, which means Czechoslovak Daily. And there is a lot of short notice about Koreans. They, for example, know that Koreans fight with Bolsheviks, so they know that probably in some battles the Czechoslovak legionaries fought against the Koreans, Bolsheviks, we can say. But of course, they have some other Koreans in Vladivostok, which they cooperated. It is very interesting that in 1920 there was some 4 or 5 part article in this newspaper, which was very long history of Korea. Because between the legionaries there was a lot of university people, so there was someone who knows the Korean history in this time, and he write really a long article about Korean history from the medieval to 1920, and about the Japanese rule, and that the Koreans want the independence. It's very important and very complicated for them in this time that Japan was allies for us. But allies like this, because there was a lot of problems with Japanese in this time. In 1918, when the Czechoslovak soldiers met the Japanese first time, this was really warmly, because it was new thing for both sides. But in 1920, the Czechoslovak soldiers saw that Japan army in Russia is not good, that there is no good behavior for the Russians, especially against the Korean people. And in March 1920, the Japan army took by strong the Czechoslovak army one of the armored train. It was big political problem that the French general must say that the Japans must give the train back to Czechoslovaks. So in 1920, the Czechoslovaks didn't like the Japans, but they liked the Koreans, we can say. So the Koreans saw very often on the photographs. But the photographs have the captions by the soldiers, and now we cannot say if there is for example here Koreans in the port, if they are really the Koreans, because often we have the same pictures with different captions, Chinese or other nations, but I took the photos where the Koreans are very often. So I think that these photographs really looks like Korean people around in the Vladivostok and around. So there are Korean people in the port. Next. There are photographs of Koreans from the Vladivostok, probably from the markets and from the ports. Czechoslovak legionaries together with Koreans. So next one. This is typically the workers from the ports and who helped it, for example, with Czechoslovak ships. And next one, Korean woman, of course. There is some typical activities, I think, because on the photographs, so all are very similar. And I think that this one is interesting for me because there is only one, it is not often, as only one this exemplar, and the caption is Korean wedding, so I don't know if it's really are Koreans, but probably yes. Okay. Relatively new information we have now, because there is anniversary of ship transport is 105 years this year. So when we prepared a book about this ship transport, and we obtained some new information about transport number 9, and we discovered that this transport must stop in Korean, and probably it is the only only happened when the Czechoslovak soldiers go in Korea mainland. This ship Karachi Maru go in the strong wind, and they must stop by Korea. In the manuscript, the name of Korean village is but I didn't find it on the map. I think that the problem with the name is that is something like Japan name of the village go to the English and can do the Czech. So I don't know how the real name of the village can be. But the author of the manuscript, he was a translator of the commander of the transport, have possibility to go in this village. So in his manuscript is some 5 or 6 pages where he described the villages, the people in the village. He described how they are closed, how used the ships, and something like this. I think that is first time, and probably the last time, in all legionnaire history when the legionnaire were really on Korean mainland. Unfortunately, we have a lot of pictures from this transport, but no one is from Korean, of course. They're unplanned, and if you are interested, I can send you all these pages, and maybe it will be interesting for you. And of course, this transport can continue to theirs, and it's more some interesting thing than some real historical point. But it is, we can say that the problem with this Czechoslovak legionary to Korean is that the Czechoslovak legionary history is no big topic now in Czech history. There is no big of historian or no big institution who made continually the legionary history. Of course, after in World War II and when the communists come, the legionnaires were taboo because they fought with Bolsheviks, were freelance, they were democratics. So Nazi and communist regime didn't want them. So we can say that from 1939 to 1989 there was nobody who can make the legionary history. So a lot of information was not made, was forgotten, and after the Velvet Revolution, there was other topic to study. Mainly in the military history, it was World War II, of course, because there were a lot of veterans. So the World War II was more important, and of course, in communist regime, the soldiers from Western Army was taboo too. So this legionary history is little in back. And when we go in this topic, Czechoslovak and weapons for Koreans, I must say that we have no strong archival evidence that that happened. But it is clear because, like I said, the Japans were all allied, so we cannot go make it official. But the Czechoslovak very clever, and they need finance to the ship's transport. So there was some possibility to sell everything to black market. I think they used it. And of course, the Korean independence movement was very likes to them. We have some reports that the soldiers, the one soldiers, selling their weapons to some people, mainly the Russians, Koreans, and the Japanese commanders made some reports to Czech commanders, and probably it was because the ship transport, because the soldiers cannot take all things from the Russia. There was some limit, so they selling everything what they need. And of course, for 6-year war, they have a lot of weapons and everything. So they sell them, and then in Singapore they buy some memorabilia. But there is one very interesting people. He left the Czechoslovak Legion and go in Admiral Kolchak's army. He was one of 3 main Kolchak's commanders. He was very successful, but Russians didn't like it. So there was some problem with the other Russian general, and in summer 1919, Gaida left the Kolchak's army. And we think that he can some way use their contact to obtain the weapons for the Koreans, because we have contacts with the movement. Unfortunately, for this hypothesis, we have no archives documents, but I think that big problem is that nobody study history of legionary or from 1938. So I think that in the papers in Minister of Foreign Affairs or in military defense, I think that there is a lot of unworked papers. So I hope that we can find some new information about it. But it is very interesting topic to Legion history. It is we are, I think, very proud that we cooperated with Korean movement, but unfortunately still is no the exact paper who said we sell the weapons to Korean side. But we have museum in train like Geovlak, and in this our museum the ancestors of our legionaries take a lot of personal items, manuscripts of diary and so. So maybe in the time some new information about these activities will be. For us, very important will be only one man, only one Czech name. If we know one Czech name who was connected with this cooperation, we can start the research, but still we have no one. Yes. And on the end, I have really basic information about Czechoslovakia and Korean War. Of course, this opposite side, and after the communist revolution, of course, the North Korea was a new communist state like Czechoslovakia. So when the war started, there was strong support for the North Korean side. So, for example, there is some page from Czech military magazine Voják, Soldier. In every issue is something like this. The Czechoslovak support the fighting North Korea. So we support the North Korean in United Nations. We supplied with some goods and mainly some medical equipment, clothing, boots, but for example 25 locomotives, etc., etc. And this was interesting for me too. We made some North Korean children to the Czech Republic, to some teaching them and take them from the from the war time, right? And the only military help to North Korea was sending the surgical mobile field hospital. It was go in 1952, so it is really on the end of the war. So there was some problems with the personnel because they were not prepared to the battle area, but the doctors and staff was exchanged after some 4 to 6 months. So it was not a big problem at all. They cooperated with North Korean 56 hospital, but there was some problem with the places where the hospital should be. And when the war ended, the hospital changed to civilian, and the soldiers come back. This this hospital was in Korea to 1956. So there is some photos, but really only few information, because there is a little same the problem in communist time. It was secret, of course, and after Velvet Revolution, this topic was not so important for the historian. But I think that in last year is change, and communist army is very interesting for young historian, and there is a lot of works on this topic. So maybe there will be something new about the part of Czechoslovak army in Korean War. And the last one is after the war, the Czechs were part of the Neutral Nation Supervisory Commission. Of course, the Czechoslovak government think that this commission used like political issue used against the American and something like this, but very early they know that this didn't happen, and it was changed, that the soldiers and the members of the commissions more cooperated with South Korean than North Korean. The invasion in 1968 was a big part of this. And in 1987, there was start of cooperation, economic cooperation between Czechoslovakia and South Korea, so that North Koreans said that the Czechoslovaks are not good allies. So when after the Velvet Revolution, and when the Czechoslovakia split to Czech and Slovak Republic, our army left the commission, and I think that is the last time when the Czechoslovak soldiers have some strong connection between South Korea and our country. I am sorry, I really not expert on this topic, and it is only few information, but maybe help too. So I think it's all for me, and I hope there will be some question. Thank you for your patience.
영어로 질문하시고 한국말로 질문하면 여기 있는 사람 말고 온라인으로 질문하는데 온라인에
질문은 아니고 앞서 말씀 중에서 코슬라바키아 사람들이 빼름 지역, 우랄 빼름 지역에서 노동자가 많이 있었다는 말씀을 하셨지 않습니까?
So there has been lots of Korean laborers in firms.
그 한국인도 많이 있었고 중국인도 많이 있었는데
There were lots of Koreans and Chinese.
빼름 지역을 해방시키고 최초로 소비에트한 게 한국 같지 않습니까?
So the ones who first liberated the firms, it was the Korean colonies.
아까 이제 투빼름, 빼름을 도망쳤다고 되어 있는데 그게 아니라 거기 헬로니스트였으면 한국인.
So it's Koreans actually contributed by liberating those areas.
Yeah, yeah.
그거 아까 사실은 조금
It's just a
우리
comment.
전에하고 좀 다른 것 같아요.
Okay. Thank you.
한 가지만 더 질문하겠습니다. 전쟁과인간
Thanks for your
설명하실 때 블라디보스토크에 대해서 철수하면서 우리들이 한국에 연결이 것. 그러니까 그게 기록상으로 있느냐 없느냐 이거 있는데 정말 책에는 한 건도 없습니다.
So when withdrawing from Vladivostok, when the transferring of the ammunitions,
Mhm.
so he's asking whether there's no evidence at all, archival evidence about that. Anything that you can find?
It is a strong term. Is so in all military archives, is lot of material, but it was non-working. So there is lot of papers which nobody know for 100 years. So it is probably that something for this be here. There is lot of information about how many equipment the Czechoslovak have, how many stay in Vladivostok. All of them exist. We know it. We know it that in between the wars, when the historians or the regional historians work about the history of regions, they used it. So something like this must exist, but we don't know where. There is some rumors when the Germans come in Czechoslovakia in 1939 that they took it, because of course they were very interested in how the Czechoslovaks fight in Siberia, because they planned to attack Soviet Union, and the Czechoslovak army was only successful here. So they studied the Czechoslovak history in Siberia. So we know that these documents exist, but we don't know if exist still and where.
그리고 두 번째 질문은
The second question is,
그때
말씀을
이미 알아두셨겠지만 간단하게 제가 하고 말씀드리면은 100년간의 그 자료이기 때문에 상세하게 다 기록이 되기 때문에 반드시 이 기록은 남아 있는데, 그런데 지금 그 기록이 어디에 있는지는 전혀 제가 알지 못합니다. 한 가지 그 베스를 해볼 수 있는 거는 그 독일 분들이 이제 그렇게 들어왔을 때 독일 분들이 시베리아에서 스포가 어떤 식으로 활동했는지에 대한 관심이 굉장히 많았었기 때문에 독일이 그걸 가져갔다라고 볼 수도 있겠지만 확인된 것이 없고 그렇게 추정을 할 뿐이다. 분명히 있는데 어디 있는지 모른다.
제가 그 질문드렸던 이유는 그것은 우리 한국에서는 아직도 체코가 우리한테 넘겨준 것은 마치 기록이 있는 것처럼 이야기하는데 지금까지 기록이 나온 게 단 한 건도 없습니다. 그래서 다시 한번 알고 싶어서 그랬었고, 앞으로 기록이 나온다면 더 좋은 일이고, 현재까지 기록은 없습니다. 두 번째 질문은 그렇다면은 그때 당시에 파견되었던 사람들이 수지, 탈고로 이런 것들이 발간된 게 있다면 거기에는 우리 한국에 대해서 분석한 것이 있을 것 같은데 그런 수지나 해고록이 발간이 되었는지 있다면 후광도를 통해서 협조하고 싶습니다.
So the second question is, people who are deployed there, is there any like written material in terms of in the forms of memoirs, etc.? There should be some kind of a memoir, etc. Should there be anything like that? We'd like to cooperate with the government to actually
Yes.
keep in touch with those materials.
Between the wars, between 1920 to 1938, there was a lot of memories by the books. But after World War II, it was taboo. A lot of memories cannot be published. So we have a lot of books from 20s and 30s, but it's more something like adventure. They They write about the ships and the way around the world. They have some from the famous battle, like Battle of Borov, because it was business. You can say it was business for the writers. But after the communists, it was taboo. So we have often that the ancestors say that we have at home some materials after my granddad. There was some medals, weapons, materials, but the secret points were around, so we destroyed it. So a lot of personal items and memorabilia was destroyed between the in the World War II because Gestapo, and then 1948 because the secret communist secret police. But all Legiovlak gone around the Czech Republic and Slovakia, and we collect the things like this. So we have a lot of memories. We can say we have a lot of. We have over 100, but we think there is a lot of so there is some change, some change that in material we do not know, but we can obtain. There will be information about the Czechoslovak Korean relationships. But in this exist memories, there is only one is the general memory about the Korean workers in Vladivostok. There is some memories about the Japanese attacks to Korean people in 1920. So it's more general information than some typical information about these weapons. So well, some information about the workers, how the Koreans lives in Vladivostok we have, but about the movements, not yet.
So there is some information about it, not but
About the Koreans, yes, limited and in general, because when the legionnaires go in Vladivostok and they see the Korean people, of course it was interesting for them, so they were, oh, we see the Koreans, they live in this house, they have these clothes, and they make these things, but it is everything.
아저씨께서 좀 간략하게 줄여서 이야기하면 그 저기 남아 있기는 한데 기본적으로 그 세계 2차 대전 이후부터는 이게 1920년대, 30년대는 많이 그런 그룹들이 있었다고 합니다. 근데 그 2차 대전 나서부터 이런 그룹들에 대해서 이제 얘기하는 거가 다 터부시 됐고, 그 다음에 그 이후에 이제 공산이 일어나면서 이런 것들에 대해서 이제 어떤 기록을 없애는 그 것들이 있어가지고 남아있는 것들이 그렇게 많지는 않다고 합니다. 그럼에도 불구하고 그리고 20년대, 30년대 때 이제 만들어진 그런 기록들은 또 완전히 수비로 이제 그 사람들 보고 쓴 것도 있지만 소설 형식으로 상업적 형식으로 쓴 것도 많았었는데 그 안타깝게 기록들이 완전히 다 남아있지는 않은 상황이라고. 근데 그럼에도 불구하고 지금까지 남아있는
영사들이 무시하는 바람에 다 패배하고
아, 네.
그 정도 시간이 지나서 지났는데 그 순간에 온라인으로 상담을
Time is up, but if we could just answer the two questions from online. So after the Czechoslovakian went back to their own countries, how were they treated? What was their status in terms of when they went back to their own countries? And did they have any frictions to Austria-Hungarian, those who are actually from other, who are from Austria-Hungary, cadets from who are actually originally there? Would there be any frictions?
There are some people who want in Austria. Yeah, of course. There is a lot of people who said that the legionnaires are traitors, and the Austro-Hungarian was a great empire, and of course there is a lot of problems of small nations, and they said that when the Austro-Hungarian was still this big country. There was no problem like this. So yes, they said that regionals are traitors and the Austro-Hungarians should stay and continue to this day. There is still the Habsburg house in Austria, so there are a lot of Czech people who go in Austria to these ancestors and make some celebration in them.
And the last question is, why did Bolshevik government wanted to disarm the Czechoslovakian army, and how did that actually impact international politics and to the civil war in Russia?
Oh yes. The reason was that there was an Brest-Litovsk conference when the Bolsheviks signed the peace with the Germans, and one of the thing was that Germans were all international forces in Russia may be disarmed. There was, of course, the Czechoslovak army was the bigger, but there was some French units, there was some United Kingdom's units, and of course the Germans didn't want they go in the Western Front. So in the Czechoslovaks there was the idea that Bolsheviks take the money, take the weapons, or they take the soldiers in the Red Army because they think they are revolutionaries, but they didn't recognize that they want independence and not the Bolshevik revolution. But the Bolsheviks in this time have a problem with Russian Tsarist general in north and so. So in this Siberia region, the Red Army was not strong. So their first move was they take the Czechoslovak army on the smaller groups in the Trans-Siberian railway stations from the Volga to the Vladivostok. And they must go, they must disarm, and in every one train there's left only 100 rifles and one machine gun. They think that these Czechoslovak soldiers have not have the weapons, there will not be problem to defeat them. So when the war started, the Czechoslovak soldiers really often fought with stones and stakes and something like this. But really quickly they took equipment in the supplies of former Tsarist army. And the impact to the civil war was really great because the Bolsheviks must split the forces from other fronts and send it against the Czechoslovak. But more important is that the Czechoslovak Bolshevik War was really important for all First World War because in Siberia there was probably around 7,100 German and Austrian soldiers. And when the Czechoslovak army took the railway, they cannot go back to the Austria or Germany and cannot be used in Western Front. So we have a lot of newspapers, articles from US where they sing that Czechoslovak miracle, they defeat the Germany because it was exactly in time when the German army had big offensive in France. And when they can use this 500,000 people in Western Front, there is big probability that the German army can win the First World War. But because these soldiers were in Siberia, in the prisoner of war camps still, and Czechoslovak legions have the largest railway, they cannot go. The American army comes in France, and Western Allied army win the war because they have more men. So this part of regional history is unknown in Czech Republic. We alone discovered in thanks to American colleagues. We said, "Do you know that you have big impact for this all war?" No, we didn't know that. We read the articles, and so the Czechoslovak has big impact on the Civil War because I think that
the Red Army cannot fight with Czechs. The more quicker defeat the former Tsarist generals, and of course on the First World War.
We might have to do with that. So, is so the director main is wants to deliver special thanks for the people from embassy, and if John can introduce people from Czech